We are going to be opening one of those workbooks that the publisher has provided. So hopefully you have downloaded and extracted the student files. If you haven't, they are in Moodle and there are directions on how to do that. If you have any problems at all, please let me know and I'll help you. But we're going to be opening the Fill Cells workbook. And then we're basically going to be finishing off that workbook using a variety of features. So to open, we're going to go to File and Open. Now you'll notice that it's showing you the AMP benefit file, which we worked on today, because if we wanted to reopen that, this is just a really fast way of doing that. Plus, it shows you other files that you've used in Excel. Now, chances are the file that we want isn't going to be displayed because we've never used it before. So we need to go to Browse, and we need to find the file. Now, Excel is smart enough to know that I saved AMP benefits in the Excel Lesson 1 folder, and so it's got that folder open, and that happens to be where Fill Cells is located, and that is what we want to open. So we're going to click on it and click on Open. You could also double click, kind of a personal preference thing. Okay, and this is the file that we're going to be working with. If you see this protected view message, click on Enable Editing. Now, that message often displays in Excel and Access, so just kind of be forewarned. You probably are going to have to enable the editing. Now, we're going to change the name of this just a little bit. I'm going to go to File and Save As. Now, you might wonder, why didn't we click on Save? Once the file has a name, if you click on Save, it just saves the changes under the current name. What we want to do is give it a completely different name. We're going to change the name. So we need to go to File and Save As. And instead of Fill Cells, we're going to click right before Fill. And let's see, it's got it all highlighted. I'm going to use my left arrow, and that will move my insertion mark right before the F in Fill. And I'm going to key in a 1 and a dash. Okay, and then I'm going to save it. Now it is going to save it into that folder, which is exactly where I want it. And I will tell you, in Excel, it is a good habit of looking to see where things are going to save, because you want to make sure you know where your files are going. Just saves frustration later on. So at this point, we've got the one Fill Cells, which is the one that we're going to change. And we're going to go ahead and make cell B1 the active cell. And they want this to say January. So we're going to go ahead and key in the word January. And then I'm going to use the right arrow key. And you could also use Tab to enter January and reposition your active cell. Now, we want months at the top of these columns. And it does get rather tedious to go into each cell and key in the month. There is a feature in Excel that you can use to generate a series. You can also use it to copy numbers. You can copy calculations. Okay, it's one of my favorite features, and it is called the Fill feature. And if we click right on January, you'll notice in the active cell on the border in the lower right corner, is a little square box, and that is called a fill handle. And if you position the mouse over that fill handle, you're going to get a skinny plus sign. And you'll notice when it's anywhere else, you've got that thicker blocked plus sign, but when you're over the fill handle, you have the little skinny one. Okay, when you see that skinny plus sign, you are over the fill handle, and you can simply left drag your mouse to generate a series. And so what we're going to do is position right here, and we're going to left drag to generate the series. Now I'm going to use undo because I want to show you something else. And this does trip up people who are new to Excel. So to use the fill, you need the skinny plus sign. But if your mouse is a little bit too high, or it's a little bit to the left, you no longer have the skinny plus sign. What you have is a four-headed arrow. This four-headed arrow is the symbol for move. Okay? It's used to move data. And it's kind of a universal symbol, so it's not just in Excel. It's pretty much all over. This is for moving. Okay? So we do not want to move January. So make sure that you've got your mouse right over the fill. It's going to look like this skinny little plus sign. And then you can left drag and fill in that series. And learning how to use this fill feature is going to save you a ton of time. Okay? And it's really not that hard to use, you know, as long as you remember to position right over the fill handle, get the skinny plus sign. Now we're going to enter some years. And we're going to do our first year in cell A2. And if you're looking along with the book, you're going to notice that the years are every other year. So it's not year 1, year 2, year 3. We've got year 1, so it's year space 1. I'm going to press enter. And below that, we have year space 3. Now for the next two cells, we wanted year 5 and year 7. You can use the fill feature when you have a pattern that you want to fill in. So what you have to do is establish your pattern. So our pattern is every other year, and we've established that in A2 and A3. So we're going to highlight A2 and A3. Now to highlight, this is another thing that students often have trouble with. When you're highlighting cells, and it's also called selecting cells or selecting a range. Okay? It's all the same thing. If you're selecting a range of cells, you're highlighting cells. And when you're highlighting, you need to have the blocked plus sign. So I usually go right in the middle of the cell and left drag down. Okay? And then you got to release the button. Okay? And at that point, you position over the fill handle and drag down. Okay? And it will recognize the pattern and it will continue it for you. So fill feature is super powerful, and it is something that you're going to want to master because it'll make creating spreadsheets go much faster. Now we are going to go to, let's see, cell B2. And they want us to copy the 100 across. And we can use the fill for this as well. Now there is no pattern here. Okay? This is just a straight number. So what it's going to do is just copy that number. And it would do the same with text. If we had text in here, it would just copy that text to each cell. Now you may have noticed that it was smart enough to copy the formatting because those cells are bold-faced. And whenever it does something like that, you do have a little smart tag. So if we click on that, we can actually tell it how we want that number copied. Do I want it with the formatting or without the formatting? Okay, so you can actually adjust that. And for this, we do not want the formatting. So I'm going to choose this fill without formatting. And you'll notice that the bold is removed from those cells that we copied into. Now, we're also going to take and basically copy the formatting. Okay, so we're going to click on 100, and we're going to take that fill handle and go down. Now, it looks like, we're going to release here, it looks like it copied the 100 all the way down, which it did, but we're going to go into our autofill options, and we're going to say fill formatting only. And what that'll do is copy the boldface, but it's not going to change the numbers. Okay, so you can copy the number without the formatting, you can copy the number with the formatting, or you can simply copy the formatting, all using the fill feature. Now we're going to make cell A10 our active cell, and we're going to key in quarter 1. We're going to abbreviate the word quarter. So QTR space 1. I'm going to press enter. And this is another thing that Excel will generate for us. So we're going to click on it. And because we didn't establish any kind of pattern like we did with year 1 and year 3, it's going to assume we want to increment by 1. So when we grab the fill handle here and drag it down, you'll notice that it automatically generates quarter 2, 3, and 4. Now at this point, we've got our text, which is our row headings and our column headings, and we've got the numbers entered. And what we're going to do next is enter some calculations. Now you can create the calculations manually, but if the type of calculation that you want to perform is pretty common, such as adding a row of numbers or a column of numbers, averaging numbers, that type of thing, there are functions built into Excel that you can use that will make your life a whole lot easier. All calculations begin with an equal sign. But if you want to use a function, you just have to have the name of the function, and then in parentheses, you have to have the range of cells that you want it to look at. And there are all sorts of places in Excel where you can use commands to insert those functions for you. And the most popular function is the sum function. And that is the first one that we're going to use. So we're going to go ahead and add a little row heading in A6. That heading is called total. And then I'm going to use the right arrow to get over to B6, which is where I want my result to go. So I'm going to be entering a calculation that's going to add the numbers that are in the column. Result is going to display in B6. The function that we're going to use is called sum or AutoSum, and it is so popular that there is a command for it on the home ribbon, and there's also a command for it on the formula ribbon. Now we're going to stay over here in home, and you don't need to key or to click the arrow, because the arrow gives you a menu with other functions. All we really need to do is point right at AutoSum and click. And you will see that it puts the equal in because it's a calculation followed by the name, sum, and then in parentheses, it's giving you a range of cells. So B2 through B5. Now I'm going to press enter, and that will show the result. Now if I want to see that function again, I just basically click, and then I can see the function up here in the formula bar. And that's part of the reason it is called a formula bar, because it's showing you the calculations. Now I can click down here on C6 and do the same thing. And it is showing me the range it's looking for. Okay, and then I can press enter. I can do the same thing here on D6. But you can see how tedious this is. So you may think, why can't I just use that fill? You can't. What we're going to do is click on the result, position over the fill handle, and go across. And Excel is smart enough to know that when you copy from column C to column D, it has to adjust the cell. And when you go from D to E, it does the same thing. Okay, so the fill feature was actually designed to copy calculations. It makes your life a whole lot easier. Okay, so sum function is only to add. So you use it if you want to add a column or a row of numbers. Now we're going to add another function to this. This is going to go in our 14th row. We're going to put a little column heading in A14 called average. And then I'm going to right arrow to get over. And then in cell E14, that is where I'm going to put my calculation. And the function that I want to use is called average. Okay, so I mentioned that if you click on the arrow next to AutoSum, you're going to see other functions. Clicking on this arrow displays different statistical functions. An average is a statistical function. So to use it, all we have to do is click on average. Okay, it puts equal average into the cell, and it gives us the range of cells, which is correct. So I'm going to press enter. Okay, and then we're going to go over to C14. And you might think, well, if I actually know the name of the function, can I just key it in manually? Sure, you can do that. You just key in an equal sign, key in the name of the function, put in a left parenthesis, drag. Now you have to manually drag over the cells, but it'll put that range in there. Type the right parenthesis to finish it off, and press enter. Okay. Personally, I think using AutoSum is easier, okay? But you can manually key things in if you want to. And just like with the sum function, we can actually use the fill handle for average, and again, it adjusts those cells. So we are done modifying this workbook. So we're going to go ahead and save it. And if you want to print it, you can, just so you know how. We would go to File and Print. And it's going to show you the printer. It's going to print the active sheet by default, which is the one we were working on. And you'll notice that there's orientation here. As long as you can see all your data, you really don't need to change it. But quite often in spreadsheets, you do have to switch to landscape because it gives you a little bit more horizontal room. Okay? And once you've kind of adjusted it, you can click on Print. Now, if you decide you don't actually want to print it because you don't need to print this out for me, just click on your little arrow, save it, and then you can go ahead and close. If you want to stay in Excel, remember you have to click on File and Close. Okay. Otherwise, if you want to exit Excel and close, click on your X.